On April 21st, 2025, the world fell silent. Morning bells echoed, and the Roman sky that morning seemed particularly grey. The passing of Pope Francis was not merely a farewell to a spiritual leader, but the beginning of a chain of mysterious events, the discovery of a hidden legacy few suspected existed. This event shook not only the walls of the Vatican, but also the hearts of millions of believers, followers of his teachings. Within the centuries-old walls of the Holy See, questions arose once more, demanding immediate answers. What would become of his possessions? What secrets and sacred symbols did the Pope leave behind? What was the fate of those artifacts not kept in bank vaults, yet of immeasurable value to the history of the Church and all humanity? And most surprisingly, what did Jorge Mario Bergoglio's family discover after his death that made them simultaneously weep with joy and deep contemplation? This is not merely a tribute. It is an invitation to touch an invisible, yet infinitely valuable legacy that Pope Francis left to his loved ones, and which, surprisingly, is accessible to everyone. A fortune measured not in currency, but in faith, good deeds, and eternal memories. Throughout his pontificate, Francis maintained a strict stance on social inequality, avoided luxury, and led a modest life. While many strive for power and prestige, he preferred solitude in prayer and a restrained display of charity. But no one suspected that behind this simplicity lay a spiritual treasure that would only be revealed after his death. And it is this secret that will be disclosed further. You will learn details about a legacy that not only touched his family, but also put the entire Vatican on high alert. A spiritual gift transcending generations, capable of blessing and transforming those willing to receive it. Prepare yourself, because what you are about to see goes far beyond news reports and official ceremonies. This is something only a select few had access to, and which will now be unveiled before your eyes. From the very beginning of his reign, Pope Francis made it clear that his understanding of wealth extended beyond the material world. Contrary to the common perception of a Supreme Church leader's life, Francis refused to accumulate personal property. He did not receive a salary, owned no real estate, and sought no titles or material possessions. As a member of the Society of Jesus, Jorge Mario Bergoglio took a vow of absolute poverty, committing to renounce excess and attachment to worldly things. This vow was not merely a formality. In practice, he did not even own personal clothing bought with his own money. Any need for shoes, clothes, or necessities was met by the Church at his request, which took care of his needs. And here begins the true story of this invisible fortune. While previous popes lived in the majestic apostolic palace, a symbol of power and tradition, Francis chose the simplicity of Domus Sanctae Martae, a modest residence in the Vatican, far from the lavish halls and historic rooms. There he lived in accordance with his sermons, in humility and complete detachment from earthly goods. His meals, medical care, transportation, and all necessities were provided by the administration of the Holy See. He himself admitted in interviews that he never worried about what he wore or what would be on his table, as he knew his mission was far more important than any fleeting possessions. But it is in this radical detachment that the fortune lay, which brought his family to tears. Francis believed that a person's true legacy lies in their actions, in their lived faith, in the example that remains after death. He said that love shown in small deeds is more valuable than any coin, and that memories of a good heart are a treasure that does not lose its value over time. By rejecting luxury and embracing simplicity, Pope Francis created an unbreakable spiritual legacy, invisible but infinitely valuable, which touched not only his relatives, but also priests, believers, and ordinary people around the world. What few know, and what you will begin to understand next, is that this spiritual state was carefully cultivated by him and left in messages, actions, and small gestures throughout his life. A legacy that can become part of your story today. And most impressively, this spiritual heritage that brought his family to tears upon realizing its greatness is still active and can change the lives of those who discover and accept it. When the lights in Domus Sanctae Martyr went out on the night of April 21st, 2025, and the bells sang their farewell song over Rome, the world prepared to learn the secrets left by a man who for years preached absolute detachment and radical simplicity. It was expected that, like any leader of such stature, documents, property, and bank accounts would be discovered. After all, within the walls of the Vatican, stories always circulated about hidden fortunes and assets destined for heirs or specific purposes. But with Pope Francis, the discovery was different, shocking, and deeply symbolic. After the official procedures were completed and his personal records made public, the world was astonished. Pope Francis's material wealth was negligible, barely exceeding a few dollars. No real estate registered in his name, no personal bank accounts, no tangible inheritance that could be divided or inherited. Absolutely nothing that connected him to any earthly possessions. For many, this might have seemed like a complete collapse, a life that left nothing behind. However, for those who knew Francis intimately, his true legacy lay in the words he left and in the actions that became his eternal symbol. This was Jorge Mario Bergoglio's authentic will, inscribed not on official documents, but etched into history and into the hearts of those he met on life's journey. A testament asserting that a person's greatest wealth is the souls they touched, the lives they changed, and the faith they managed to uphold even in the darkest times. According to those closest to him, Francis often repeated in his final days, "What I take with me, not even death can take away. And what do I leave? It is immeasurable." And it was precisely so. Francis's spiritual testament contained blessings, guidance, and advice that he quietly gave over many years. Phrases handwritten on small scraps of paper, notes secretly passed to friends and colleagues, and teachings embedded in sermons often went unnoticed, but now, after his passing, acquired a completely new meaning. While the world speculated about the possible hidden fortune of the most influential man in the Church, Pope Francis's true wealth, discovered after his death, could not fit into bank vaults, had no monetary value, and was beyond calculation. This was the very legacy of simplicity he always preached. Many mistakenly confuse simplicity with absence or lack, but for Francis, it was something entirely different. He believed that the more one renounced excesses, the more space opened in one's heart for what truly mattered. And he lived by this belief until his last breath. Throughout his pontificate, Francis sought to dismantle the contradiction between luxury and ostentatious wealth. He rejected golden thrones, avoided lavish vestments, and did without luxurious cars. He preferred to travel in ordinary vehicles, providing the same modest comfort as for any other citizen. He chose to live in Domus Sanctae Martae, a humble and simple setting where he could interact with colleagues and religious figures without excessive formality, away from the isolation of palace halls. This choice was seen not only as a display of humility, but also as an act of spiritual rebellion. He wanted to prove that a person's greatness lies not in what they own, but in what they give to the world. And it was in this simple setting that the full depth of his legacy was revealed after his passing. In his rooms, no safes, collections, or luxury items were found. Only a few worn prayer books, an old wooden rosary, a simple crucifix, and 3 personal items that, it turned out later, held immeasurable spiritual value. Francis's relatives, seeing this setting, could not hold back their tears, not because of the absence of material wealth, but because of the emotional and spiritual weight this place carried. It seemed that every corner testified to his life dedicated to self-denial, silent service, love for the poor, and unwavering faith. But the most touching discovery was among the notes and small jottings, phrases and advice left for those who wished to follow the same path of simplicity and light. Lessons on detachment, on how to find happiness in small things, and on the importance of serving others as the highest mission. This is the legacy Pope Francis wanted to leave the world, the conviction that true wealth lies in a pure heart, a simple life, and service to one's neighbor. When silence enveloped Domus Sanctae Martae that night, and Pope Francis's closest relatives were able to enter his rooms for a final farewell, none of them were prepared for what they were about to see. There was a natural expectation, as with any public figure, letters, important items, perhaps something he had saved for his loved ones. But what they discovered surpassed all expectations and brought uncontrolled tears. Amidst the humble surroundings, where there was no luxury, no jewels, or any symbols of earthly wealth, they found the true treasure left by Jorge Mario Bergoglio, a treasure invisible to ordinary eyes, but capable of deeply touching those who truly knew him. On his bedside table lay 3 modest items: a wooden rosary, already worn by time, a small crucifix of dark iron, and a notebook with a frayed cover. This was all he kept as the most precious treasures of his existence. It was then, as they turned the yellowed pages of the notebook, that his relatives discovered phrases he had written over many years, small notes, personal reflections, and blessings addressed not only to them, but to all he loved in silence. Among them were messages such as, "When I leave, do not mourn what I did not leave, but mourn the love I tried to sow. True good is measured not in gold, but in the echo that kindness leaves in the hearts of others." On the pages of the notebook, they also found handwritten prayers with requests for the protection of his family, for the conversion of lost souls, and for the strengthening of those who would face the pain of his passing. Emotions overwhelmed them, bringing tears of surprise and reverence. There was no inheritance in the conventional sense, but an invaluable gift was discovered, a testament to a life filled with love, practical faith, unbroken by trials. For his loved ones, this proved to be more precious than any material wealth, undeniable proof that Francis, even while holding the papal throne, did not forget his roots and loved ones, caring for their future even in the face of death. The true fortune left by Pope Francis was revealed only after his death, not in bank vaults and financial documents, but in a powerful spiritual legacy capable of healing entire generations. The world knew him as a humble pontiff, averse to luxury and privilege. But those close to him saw in Francis a deep conviction. A person's greatest treasure is what they leave in the hearts of family and all who cross their path in life. This is what his family discovered when sorting through the yellowed pages and simple items found after his passing. Among Francis's handwritten prayers and carefully preserved notes, a collection of blessings and instructions was found, intended to protect descendants and free future generations from spiritual ailments, worldly temptations, and invisible bonds. He believed, like the ancient saints, that blessings and curses could transcend time, that actions, prayers, and relationships lived in earthly life would echo in the destinies of children, grandchildren, and those yet unborn. Every prayer, every piece of advice, every act of humility, all of this constituted his invisible fortune, a treasure impervious to rust, loss, and thieves, a legacy capable of breaking spiritual chains, healing emotional wounds, and preventing evil from taking root in a family. And mistaken is he who believes this legacy is intended only for blood relatives. Francis was convinced that everyone who accepted his words and followed the path of simplicity and true mercy would also inherit these blessings. The influence of this legacy extends beyond the Vatican and family ties, spreading throughout the world, reaching those who understand the value of a life lived in service and detachment from material possessions. And everyone who strives for this becomes part of his spiritual calling. In the commotion caused by Pope Francis's death, when many wondered about his material inheritance, the most compelling answer resonated in his life and tireless sermons. Earthly treasures are fleeting, but the soul is eternal. Francis never succumbed to the temptation of golden glitter and human glory, reminding in his sermons and letters of the transience of all earthly things, of the momentary illusion that disappears with the last breath. True wealth, he said, lies not in vaults, but in the state of the soul before God. This thought accompanied him from his youth, when he joined the Society of Jesus, renouncing material possessions. Along his path, he saw how vast fortunes were created and crumbled, leaving behind only memories and discord, how families were ruined by inheritance, and how people lost themselves in the pursuit of ambition. Therefore, he built his life on a solid, indestructible, and eternal foundation: faith. In one of the last messages found in his personal notes, Francis wrote, "Let no one regret what they cannot take with them, but let everyone worry about what they will carry in their heart on the day of judgment." This simple phrase became his life's creed. He knew that after death, none of the world's values would matter. Neither gold, nor titles, nor social status would open the gates of eternity. This awareness was reflected in his life, without attachments, without luxury, with a light heart and a soul dedicated to the eternal. Francis strived for his soul to be at peace, and for his legacy to live on in the prayers and examples he left behind. For those who knew him intimately, this was his true wealth, the certainty that, despite the oblivion of earthly possessions, the soul remains alive, echoing in the actions and words of future generations. And here, on earth, lies a great revelation. This spiritual awareness can be inherited through simple gestures, sincere prayers, and choosing the eternal over the transient. Everyone is capable of changing their story and protecting their soul from the illusions of this world. Among all the messages left by Pope Francis, One resonated most frequently. Mercy is the greatest wealth a person can possess. While the world is caught in a frantic pursuit of fleeting values, social status, and illusory honors, Francis possessed a rare insight that allowed him to see life's true treasure in the ability to forgive and be forgiven. This was not abstract philosophizing or a beautiful phrase to be uttered from the pulpit, but served as a practical foundation for his existence. He sincerely believed that mercy is a heavenly currency, capable of acquiring inner peace, deliverance from past transgressions, and the healing of emotional wounds that money cannot touch. In his sermons, the Pope tirelessly repeated that a person who carries mercy in their heart will never know true poverty. Even without material possessions, jewels, or bank accounts, they will gain what angels recognize as genuine wealth, a pure heart and a soul reconciled with God. During a severe illness, realizing death was near, Francis did not ask for earthly possessions or recognition for his merits. His request was simple and touching. May the Lord have mercy on me, and may I, in my last moment, be able to forgive the one who caused me the most pain. This sincere and powerful act reveals the scale of the treasure he accumulated during his life. Francis understood that mercy not only atones for personal sins, but also breaks generational curses, opens paths blocked for entire generations, and restores relationships that seemed hopelessly broken. A simple gesture, to forgive, to help, to listen, or to accept the one who caused the most pain, he said, opened spiritual doors that money cannot access. This was Francis's true wealth, which remains accessible to everyone. No titles, no fortune, no influence are needed, only the courage to forgive, the humility to ask for forgiveness, and the wisdom to see in another person a brother worthy of divine compassion. Many were surprised to learn after Pope Francis's passing that his true legacy lay not in material possessions, but in something much deeper, something he shared humbly, yet which was accessible to everyone willing to receive it with an open heart. And this legacy, undoubtedly, is the most valuable of all. While the world habitually focuses on what can be touched, bought, and sold, Francis always directed his gaze towards the eternal. He understood that earthly riches are fleeting and, however much temporary pleasure or comfort they may bring, cannot fill the emptiness in the soul. He often repeated, "True wealth is not in gold, but in mercy." It is this spiritual legacy, immeasurable and infinitely more valuable than any material treasure, that he left behind. A legacy measured not in monetary units, but in acts of kindness, forgiveness, and compassion. In every action, Francis embodied what he preached. Mercy is the greatest wealth we can acquire, keep, and, most importantly, share with others. He always refused any separation from others, seeing everyone as his equal without distinctions, and believing that true greatness lies in simplicity and the ability to serve those around him. Therefore, he left no money, no real estate, no bank accounts. His legacy consists not of material possessions, but of examples, actions, and teachings capable of changing the lives of everyone who chooses to follow his path. The sacred prayer we mentioned earlier is part of this legacy, but by no means the only testament he left. He left us the key to a spiritually rich life, filled with inner peace, overflowing with kindness to others, and, most importantly, permeated by compassion and forgiveness, the most essential elements for achieving true freedom of the soul. This wealth is within reach of everyone who is willing to open their heart and live according to these simple yet profound principles, which can be embodied in small deeds, an act of kindness, a word of forgiveness, or simply an outstretched hand to those who need it most.